Welcome to Kyle Anthony's UFC betting show. I am Kyle Anthony and welcome to the podcast. Welcome to the betting show for UFC 284, Islam Makhachev versus Alexander Volkanovski. We're gonna talk two plays here like we always do. Excited about this big card. A lot of spots that I do like here. Already have my client play card up for clients right now. Have 3 plays already. Gonna probably have about 5 by the end of this week before we lead up to actually the fight night. I do actually have also a 5% max play. I'm 4-0 on these. Really crushing it, having a nice run on these. Have a good spot that I like, slight plus money. Excited about it, want to see it cash in for everybody. So if you want to become a client, link down in the description. And let's dive into it. Let's go right into it. We got Islam Makhachev versus Alexander Volkanovski. We are going to do what we always do here. We're going to talk about the last 3 fights for each fighter, see what we see if one fighter can expose the other fighter, and if the line makes sense to place a wager. So we're looking at this right here. You've got Islam Makhachev. He's minus 375. On the comeback here at Volkanovski, he's roughly around the plus 290 mark here. So we're first going to talk about Islam Makhachev, and 3 fights ago, he fought Dan Hooker. Now, this was a fight here where short notice fight, not the greatest situation for Dan Hooker coming into this, and this was one right out the gate. These are going to be quick breakdowns here. Right out the gate, Islam goes in there, gets the takedown, really works it, and the one thing that he does, probably better than anybody, is how methodical he is once he gets you to the ground. He doesn't just go in there, get the takedown, hold you down, and then able to get up. He's able to keep going in there. He's relentless with these takedowns. He's going to push for it right away, and he did that exactly with Dan Hooker. Got the takedown, looked to consistently be methodical when he's on top of him, and slowly moving. You could even see Dan Hooker kind of like, oh shit, I can't get out of this. Like, he just had a side control, perfect spot, ends up getting the Kimura finish in that first round, running through Dan Hooker. 2 fights ago, Islam fought Bobby Green. This was another short notice fight, and this was a spot here where a lot of people kind of thought maybe Bobby Green could utilize some of his boxing, good footwork. He's really, really well versed when it comes to his stand-up game, and would that be enough really to kind of just keep Islam at bay? And boy, did he run through him again as well too. Yeah, Bobby Green, he went out there and pretty much right away, within the first minute or 2, he got Bobby down. It was the same thing that you're going to see, and this is something that if he gets Volkanovski down, this is exactly how it's going to be. Slowly, methodically working, being calculated. That's what he was with Green. He ended up kind of slowly working to a spot. And even if Green kind of scrambling, still kept the position and even advancing, getting full mount, dropping bombs, ended up getting a TKO finish in the first round. So Islam wins there. And then most recently, the big fight between Islam Makhachev and Charles Oliveira. This is one here where I really thought that the striking of Charles was really going to be, very, very difficult for Islam to kind of come inside. Plus the fact you've got a guy in Islam who, wants to be on top, wants to have heavy top control. And then you've got the bottom, just a high level bottom game of Charles Oliveira, where he could really get submissions off of his back, be creative, sweep you, find ways to really advance positioning. And that was going to be part of this. Big part of this is that's going to be the tanglement that we're going to see on the ground. And early in that first round, you saw that Charles pulled guard. I mean, that is a ballsy, ballsy, ballsy move. If you're going to be pulling guard at Islam Makhachev, the exact spot he wants to be. Obviously, Charles, he's #1 when it comes to the most submissions in UFC history, so it's not like this guy's going to be scared of anybody when it comes to the mat. But he went right to it, and Charles kind of tried to keep the position. He tried to kind of work in that spot, keep where he was at, try to kind of submission hunt. And Islam was doing his thing, kind of advancing slowly, but there was a couple spots where he was kind of throwing up a triangle, trying to get the finish, trying to at least kind of have him worry about these submissions and maybe advance. That's what Charles does a lot, where he kind of pushes for a certain submission just to kind of get you untangled a little bit, and then he looks for another submission, something maybe you're more vulnerable to. So early in that first round, a lot of that, Islam ended up getting another takedown, kind of keeping him down there. They both kind of working. But in that second round, And it did show, I gotta say, absolutely showed really the elevation of Islam Makhachev. I mean, the fact that he was looking a lot more crisper on the feet. I thought he looked a lot more confident on the feet, more just relaxed a lot of times, and almost maybe like a Khabib kind of thing where you're almost spastically shooting for these takedowns. You're almost just kind of, utilizing striking just to cut distance. Here, I really thought that Islam was very, very confident, very, very comfortable. He was really seamlessly putting shots together. Good kicks, good combinations, quick development, really kind of throwing out good shots before he level changes. But going into that second round, he ends up dropping Charles Oliveira. I thought that is massively impressive again from him, getting the knockdown, getting on top, ends up jumping on, gets a submission finish. It was an arm triangle choke in that second round. Impressive, dropping Charles and then getting that finish. Now on the other side, you've got Alexander Volkanovski. He's plus 290. And 3 fights ago, he fought Brian Ortega. And this was a spot here where you had Ortega. He's going to have the extremely high-level BJJ, elite when it comes to the ground game, but he's the kind of guy that's not really going to get you down, has terrible takedowns, not a strong guy in the clinch, but just very versatile when he gets to the ground. He is absolutely lethal. And early you saw Volkanovski, a lot of movement. I think that's something he's going to have to do Saturday night. A lot of movement, peppering out shots, working at range. He's very quick, light-footed, a lot of good things that Volkanovski does. He was firing a lot of leg kicks, and that's something we're going to talk about a little bit later, but he was firing a lot of leg kicks. He was working, kind of keeping Ortega a little bit at bay, kind of working his combinations. Obviously, Volkanovski's going to have better striking than Brian Ortega, but it did show, I mean, that there was a lot of big exchanges, and just Volkanovski winning on volume, winning all the striking, the stand-up game there. But it showed again, once again, Brian Ortega has incredible durability. He's the kind of guy that's just can take a brick to the face, keep walking forward. He just can, it's just a high level when it comes to a chin. He is there when it comes to that. But he, was pretty much early in this fight, most of the fight early, it was just all Volkanovski until he got hurt. Volkanovski ended up getting rocked, and that was when Ortega had 2 attempts, very close attempts, really deep chokes. He had a mounted guillotine. There was another spot where I think it was a triangle choke he was going for, and both ones very, very deep. Volkanovski gets out of it, pops himself out of it. I think the only reason there was he's stronger than Ortega, was able to kind of pop his head out of there. I think if Makhachev gets him in that kind of position, it's night-night for for Volkanovski, not Volkov. So he ends up getting out of that, and he ends up winning the decision. It was a dominant performance. I mean, all the judge, I think it was like 50-45 across the board for Volkanovski. Besides for the little mishap there where he almost cost him the fight, he ends up going out there and dominating, winning all the rounds on the scorecards. And then 2 fights ago, he fought Shang Tsung Jung, and this was one where he was against Jung here. He just dominated Jung. I mean, this is something we don't really have to talk about. He dominated from beginning to end. Good volume, pushing the pace, outlanding. I really felt like Jung looked like he was confused, really couldn't really get into rhythm when they were exchanging in the pocket. It was all Volkov. He ends up destroying him, beating him up in that 3rd round, getting that finish in that 4th round by TKO. So there you have it there. And then most recently, he fought Max Holloway for a 3rd time. Now, beating Max Holloway 3 times is one of the more impressive things you can do. He goes out there, dominates the GOAT again, and this was one where the first one, Volkanovski looked great. Second one, kind of close, but they gave it to Volkanovski. And then that 3rd one was the best I think we have seen of Alexander Volkanovski. The combinations, just the range, the footwork, how quick his combinations were. I mean, if you go out there and you could outbox Max Holloway for 5 rounds, that is it's a fantastic showing from the champ. He goes out there and just looks like a completely different person on the feet. So he goes out and beats Max Holloway by decision. So with that being said, the first thing you got to talk about here, now obviously talking about what they've done and all these things about the record, who they beat, all those things are great, and I think there are going to be a lot of talking points that a lot of people are going to talk about and regurgitate over the next couple days. But obviously the big question here is, can Islam get the takedowns, and can he also just keep Volk down? Can he keep him down? Can he just work top control? And I think the first part of this is that I think Volk can do it early. I think that he's strong in the clinch. I think that he's versatile enough where he can, kind of create space where he needs to. This is not happening in the apex cage. He's going to have room to kind of scatter around and maybe skirt around the outside, fire off some leg kicks, work at range. And I think Volk can do that. But I think the biggest issue here is that Volk's going up in weight. Now, that is just a big concern when you're looking at the size and stature of these guys and the strength. Islam is known to have just gorilla type strength. And now you got a guy who's going to be smaller, who's going to be weaker, doesn't have the physical advantages. I think their reach, I believe, is very similar. But besides for that, it's a lot of the advantages are going to be going to Islam Makhachev. And I think that's going to be very important when you look at really who Volkanovski has faced. He hasn't faced anybody with even half of what Islam has when it comes to grappling, when it comes to control, when it comes to just all of the situations on the ground. I just don't see anybody that does that. Plus, he has had the luxury of kind of walking forward. You know, Volk is the kind of guy who's going to, you know, freely feel free to walk forward. If he's not being taken down, he's got, you know, can push a good volume, push a good pace, a lot of combinations. He can just freely move forward. And I think that will really make him timid here. Now you've got Islam, who is going to be the bigger guy, who can get these takedowns. I think will be very successful with the takedowns because of the size of Volkanovski. People are talking a lot about, you know, his tree trunk legs, his strength. Yeah, I think a lot of that translates well in the flyweight division. Now Volk, we know that he can, you know, rugby guy, had, you know, ballooned up to the, you know, 240, whatever it was that he ballooned up to. That's great, but I think this is very different. This is very difficult for him. So I think being the smaller guy is going to be difficult. Plus the fact that one of the biggest weapons that Volkanovski has is his leg kick. He loves firing those. He'll start a combination with them. He'll end a combination with them. He'll just fire them out nakedly because he knows that if he can land one, they do pile up. They do cause a lot of damage. He throws 100% power into those. But if he's going to be throwing these leg kicks, that has to be limited to him, I think. I think it's one of his best weapons on the feet, and I don't think he can stand there and look to fire these off. Islam is going to be looking to latch onto something. He's going to be looking to level change. He's going to be looking for these takedowns, and I think that allows it. And when we're just talking about Brian Ortega, you know, Ortega was catching leg kicks, or just kicks, from Volkanovski, and he didn't really take advantage of it until later in the fight. But if you do that to Islam Makhachev, he will take advantage of it. He does have much better top control, much more strength when it comes to Brian Ortega, and I think he's going to have a lot of success when it comes to that. And plus, Islam's chain wrestling is elite, is extremely elite. Now, I talked about it a little bit on last week's show about Sergey Spivak, who, you know, he's the kind of guy that doesn't really, for a heavyweight division, he doesn't just take a guy down, you know, one way. He just doesn't bulldoze him down. He has a lot of tricks and a lot of different certain things he does, and Islam does the exact same thing, but to a higher level. But he does the same thing where he's going to shoot for the double leg. He may shoot for the single leg. He may shoot for a little inside trip where you're on the clinch. He may hip toss you. He has all of those. So you really don't know which way Islam's going to go. Makes things even more difficult because he's has a wide array of ways to get you down. And I think that's going to be a very difficult spot for him. And I think it's going to look like almost like Holloway did when he came up and faced Poirier. Poirier was just bigger, stronger. The power difference was different. A lot of these things were different. I think you're going to see that kind of gap when they're out there grappling, whatever it is. I think the strength advantage is going to be massively towards his side. So for me here, listen, Islam goes out there. He's got 5 straight finishes here. I think everything here really is pointing at Islam. I think he can go out, he can dominate, he can control positioning. I almost think he can do whatever he wants. Now listen, on the feet, early, I think both will have moments. I think early he's going to really be firing, but I think in that second, third round or whatever it is, I just really think he's going to find that finish. So you've got Islam Makhachev here. He's minus 375. Some books have him up to a 4-1 favorite. I like inside the distance is minus 110 for Makhachev to go out there, get the victory. I think he wears on him. I think he finds success early and often with these takedowns. I think he dominates and he gets the victory. So I like Islam Makhachev inside the distance, minus 110. And the other play I'll quickly go over here is the big boys, Justin Tafa versus Parker Porter. Now, today on the Wagertalk Today show, I talked about this. I said, hey, listen, there's a lot of high-level fights that are going to happen through the year, that are going to be happening on this card. This one is absolutely not one of them. You've got Tafa right now. He's currently minus 135. The comeback for Parker Porter is roughly around the plus 105, plus 110, somewhere around that range. And you got Tafa. He's a heavy-handed boxer. He's going to look to push the pace. Maybe I should say the pace. He's going to look to push forward. He's going to look to fire the big shots. He has a very low volume, but if he lands, it's devastating. He has shown a lot of power, and he's the kind of guy that's just willing to stand and exchange. Take one to get one. And then Porter is a journeyman fighter. He's a wrestler. Doesn't, I wouldn't say very high level wrestling, but he's a wrestler, has the ability to kind of shoot these takedowns, look for that. I put it more as a lay and pray kind of guy because, you got the big boy laying on top of you, very difficult to kind of find, create space, scramble, get back to your feet kind of thing. But when you're looking at this line here, listen, I know a lot of people keep saying, hey, this line should be close, and it was a little bit, wide. I think it was, whatever, minus 160 or somewhere around there where Taffa was. The line has come in a little bit. But I think the big reason is, the first thing is, people really have seen Taffa look terrible on his back. He's not looked good. He's looked fish out of water kind of situation. But I just don't really put Parker Porter as this guy that's going to be getting all these takedowns, being successful. I think that he's strong. Taffa is strong in the clinch, can create some kind of space. Also, some people are really kind of talking about that Jared Vanderaa loss that he took, where Vanderaa is 1-5 out of his last 6. His only victory was against Justin Taffa, but it was a 6-inch reach advantage. I think Taffa was so lost by that. Vanderaa played it very, very safe, working the jab, and he just did enough to get the victory. Taffa, I thought, was just looking for the big bomb. Here, Saturday, they will have similar reach. I think that helps. So that's part of it also. And also, Porter cutting distance to get these takedowns. He looks terrible when he's cutting distance. He kind of has his head down, his hands up, swinging wildly. And I think that's a good spot where you can find Taffa throwing those big uppercuts. He's been known to just kind of, always reach for those and kind of, call upon those when the opponent's in tight, or he's the big overhand also that he does have. But I think that Porter is just defensively, inefficient. He's hittable, and I think that this fight will be on the feet. I think that it provides a landscape of big exchanges early, and I think that Porter may get a takedown or may at least push him up against the fence. But I think most of this is at distance, on the feet, center, both these guys brawling, because even Porter's the kind of guy, if he doesn't get the takedown, he has no problem firing big shots, standing, brawling. I think that he's there to be hit. He's now 37 years old, Taffa 28. Taffa kind of coming into his own right now. I mean, listen, this is not, these two big boys may not, optically look like top athletes, but I really think that Taffa has the ability to land the big shot. If you look at it, Taffa has 5 wins, all are by finish, and then you've got Porter, 7 losses, 6 were by finish. One was he had a disqualification, legal knee or something like that, that he'd have. But I really think that Taffa, home soil in Australia, I think he goes out there, he dominates. I think he lands the big shot. I think Porter is a mess, and it could get sloppy, it could get sweaty, because they're going to be firing all crazy shots, but I think Taffa finds the chin, ends him. So Taffa right now, minus 125 to minus 135. You can get Justin Taffa right now, knockout plus 165, I think is a great number. I think that really it's the only path that's going to be happening here. I don't see this going to a decision. I really think that someone's going to be getting clipped here, getting knocked out when these big boys start firing. I think Taffa has the quicker hands, more explosive. I think he gets a knockout, so I am taking Justin Taffa via knockout plus 165. So those are my plays for UFC 284 this weekend. If you want to become a client, a link down in the description. And let's see how we do. I am excited. It's a great, great card. If you want to follow me on Twitter, @KyleAnthonyUFC. And this is Kyle Anthony's UFC Betting Show, and I'll see you next time.